Eve is desperately trying to get away from a man who wants her number. All that is going through her mind is that broke boys don't deserve no pussy, as elegantly stated by Cardi B, one of Eve's favorite rappers. The man Eve is trying to get away from is Terrell. Terrell drives a 1997 Toyota Corolla. The paint is peeling off. Terrell's entire back wheel had just snapped off and rolled to a dead stop in the middle of the street. Eve spotted the tire in the middle of the road and swerved around it last minute. Eve almost found herself in a ditch swerving around that damn tire. Lucky for Eve though, she had just stopped short of the ditch. Her nerves were on edge. As she sat there collecting herself, here come this broke ass nigga Terrell trotting up to her car trying to start conversation. Eve wanted no parts of his broke ass. I mean, look at him, she thought. His clothes was shabby. His Nike Air Jordan 3s talked every time he took a step. Those shoes were so old. The stitching in the front gave way. That's why when he took a step, they flapped open and shut like a mouth. And there goes Terrell flapping his mouth open and shut, talking about, I hope you as fine as you look. You're not hurt, are you, sweetheart? Please, Eve thought to herself. But wait a minute, he's kinda handsome. Maybe if he trimmed his beard, cut his afro to a dark Caesar after laying it down to some waves, yeah, he could, but no. Eve interrupted her own thoughts. Eve took one look at his hoopty, one look at the tire in the middle of the road, shifted her eyes back to his clothes, then locked eyes with him as he says, what's your number? Terrell had to put on the biggest, brightest smile he could muster. He hoped that his grin would shine through his thick jungle beard. He followed up his question by saying, I'll make sure your car gets taken care of, as well as any of your personal needs. Still, with the biggest, most charming smile on his face, Terrell waited for a response. Eve's response? Ew. Then she burned rubber out of there. She swerved him like the tire in the road. Skirt! Broke boys don't deserve no pussy, Eve thought to herself as she skidded away. Boy, oh boy, was she wrong. Terrell was far from broke. He used to be broke back in the day when he would wear his entire wealth on his person. Terrell used to wear expensive chains, bust-down rollies, Robin jeans, Gucci slides, all that. Terrell always looked the part, but never had the actual wealth to match. After realizing his rap career wasn't going anywhere, Terrell decided to make a change. He hated the fact that the richest record label executives that he sought a deal from never had on any jewelry and never had on any fancy clothes either. But they always had more money than he did. That's why he was begging them for money. Matter of fact, the richest people in the world always had more money, but never showed off their opulence in their attire. Terrell decided to change that about himself. He sold everything he owned and invested his money in real estate. His first property was a duplex. He lived on one side and rented out the other side. He flipped that duplex a year later to a 6-unit set of townhouses. Terrell continued to swap up properties. And after a few more years, he built up enough credit and enough equity that the banks would finally allow him to add a 32-unit apartment complex, a mega apartment complex, to his portfolio. It's been 13 years in the making. He stayed down all those years and now things were finally paying off. Terrell had become a multi-millionaire. Terrell was a hands-on type of property owner. He led a team of 7 people, 2 office workers and 5 maintenance people. Whenever Terrell had a tenant move out, he was part of the cleanup crew that would go and recarpet and repaint the entire apartment. On the days that Terrell had to roll up his sleeves and get dirty as a multi-millionaire, he would wear his oldest, most shabbiest clothing and his oldest favorite pair of Jordans, his Jordan 3s. Those were his most fashionable shoes, but then over time, they had become his work shoes. Terrell had long decided to start treating himself to luxuries and creature comforts. He had decided to purchase a brand new Mercedes-Benz. After all, his disposable income was ridiculous. He could pay it off in cash 100 times over. He had already picked out his own custom-made Mercedes-Benz, but he was running behind after working a long day. The apartment that Terrell and his team were working on that day was really trashed up. It took them longer than usual, so Terrell was running behind. On his way to the Mercedes-Benz dealership, Terrell's old, faithful Toyota, being on its last legs, had lost a leg. A wheel rather. His old faithful Toyota had lost the wheel. In the midst of the chaos of Terrell's wheel flying off in the middle of the road and Eve's car screeching and spinning out of control, Terrell had seen an angel. Eve was so beautiful. Terrell realized that maybe this wasn't a good time, a good scenario to shoot his shot at this beautiful young woman, but he couldn't help himself. You only live once. Opportunities like this don't come frequently, and so he was gonna make the best of the situation. He was gonna shoot his shot anyways. Unfortunately for Terrell, Eve's philosophy is that broke boys don't deserve no pussy, and he for sure looked broke as hell that day. Terrell a few months later would recognize Eve in the club. Terrell was in the VIP section. Him and his boys were celebrating the fact that Terrell had closed his third multi-unit apartment complex within a year's time. The days of big hunky rapper jewelry and bust-down rollies were long over for Terrell. He now engaged in a more mature look, a humble flex, a calm stunt. He had on a simple Cuban link chain and a plain Jane rollie. Eve didn't recognize Terrell, but she recognized money. After a few weeks of dating, Terrell recognized the gold digger. Hey, my name is Cicaut. I write these stories, and if you enjoyed this fictional story, you will also enjoy this other fictional story that I wrote about a simp. He was sloppy drunk off of simping, and it almost cost him his life. Go watch it. Click the video on your screen right now.